hour.
We all go a little mad. We get you.
The dead follow up legendary.
You are on the dark night.
Here's Johnny.
Perfect. Hi, Kyra. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's very odd thinking about well, Chucky in general, but watching something that's so heartfelt. This documentary, I loved the theme of your second family and just you getting to meet everybody and ask these questions. So what I'd first like to know is, who was the first person when you sat down with, like, it just kind of, your mind was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this right now.
I think I'm trying to think, because I've been doing the process of this documentary has taken the course of several years to get done. I'm trying to think who I interviewed first. I can't remember if I think it was Brad and Fiona was the first interview.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah. Yeah, that was really interesting. And just seeing Brad Dourif in person in the flesh for the first time was so wonderful and slightly intimidating.
I could imagine. I mean, this project too, with it taking several years. I mean, obviously, in your connection to the Chucky franchise with your father, I love the fact that well, you took the time though to not only research, but these interviews are just so well thought out, and the questions you're asking. I'm just curious, when it took time to sit down to think about what you were going to ask, how did that process go as a writer?
Yeah, it was a little, I had my documentary filmmaking class at film school, but it's so much harder when it's a feature length version of something because you have no idea. So it was asking similar questions to everybody, but in a different way, so that hopefully their answers would kind of mirror each other in a way that I could cut them together. Luckily for me too, it was the short film was like a trial run, so to speak. So I knew what questions did well, and things that I could ask about, and other ones where it's like, that didn't really get much of a response. Good to know, or things like that. It's also was like there were so many questions not on my piece of paper because it was just like having a conversation. Like they'd say something that would make me curious about something else, and I'd ask it, and then they'd respond. So it was very much like candid conversations as well.
I mean, again, I'll say it definitely flowed very natural, and even for myself, in terms of anytime I interview a filmmaker, even as yourself, I get nervous and I always trip up at some point, or it's just you could have so many things written down, but you need to learn or know when to pivot to if you hear that one word and like, I'm going to go down that path. And so I really appreciated that in this documentary. And then also you were recently on the Dead Meat Awards.
I was.
How was that?
That was such a testament to how much I should not be in front of the camera. I get nervous when it's like an actual big camera. This is why I love actors, because they do what I can't do. It was so much fun though. James and Chelsea, it was great. Like my relationship with them started from reaching out to James to see if he'd want to be in the documentary, and then they invited me to their wedding, and now we're friends, and they asked me to do stuff with them, which is so cool. And it was great. I was reading off a teleprompter and I didn't have my glasses, and I'm dyslexic, so no. I was just like, James put like this word in there that I didn't know how to pronounce. It was really funny, but it was a lot of me saying shit and asking if I could go again.
I mean, it happens. I think that's awesome. Speaking of also in terms of, directing this feature, I'd like to know, where do you want to, take this feature, and how do you want to pivot from that to your next project?
Oh goodness. It would be lovely to see it on, because I know horror fans and specifically Chucky fans really love their hard media, like their physical releases. So it'd be interesting to see if a world would exist where Universal puts it on their next box set and whatever they do, so that it's kind of just
That would
included
be
and
cool.
everything. They did that with the short film, but they were kind of more involved earlier on, and I did this outside of Universal. So I don't know if it would either be them embracing it and asking to put it on their DVDs, or like them getting upset and like getting sued or something.
Oh.
So, but that's what I would love for that. And then pivoting from this, I would love to go back into narrative filmmaking is my true passion. I'm not opposed to doing another documentary. I need a breather because they are such a monster to tackle and time consuming.
Well, when you said several years, I was just like, oh my gosh, that one, that takes up a lot of time.
Yeah.
And I just, it blew me away because it's, to me, I'm like, oh, it's just almost, a little, I think it was a little over 2 hours, but I was just like, then to hear like, oh, this was several years in the making. I'm like, because it's again, it's quality. I'm just like, I can't fathom that at times because you're living and breathing, hence living with Chucky, but that is all that's, consuming.
Yeah. Because it was the short film I did when I was 19 in film school. So I still had school to finish while I was doing some interviews. And then I graduated and I moved out here, and that takes a little bit of time. And then COVID hit. So it just like everything was really time consuming. And also like I didn't have a budget. So I edited it myself so that I didn't have to pay anybody. And that takes, I'm not an editor. That took a long time to figure out.
Well, that I didn't know. I knew you edited, but I didn't know you were like, because I was just like, you were wearing so many hats with this.
Yeah.
And I mean, one, you should also be incredibly proud of what you put out there. And I mean, it's being picked up by Screambox. I've already seen other folks talk about this too. And you also hit the festival market. How was that actually seeing it play? Did you actually get to see it play on the big screen?
Oh yes, way too many times. I have watched this movie way too many times. And every the following festival, I'll be like, okay, I'm not watching this anymore. And then I'd be like, I'll stay for the first 10 minutes and then I'll go leave and come back. And then I just get roped into staying the whole time, because it is really fun to see what people laugh at or respond to. And it's so funny. I think it was at Fantastic Fest where Jennifer Tilly, her first interview comes on, everybody just started clapping. And then when John Waters came on, everybody started clapping and hollering. And I'm like, I would have never in the editing room thought that this would garner a response, just them being in the documentary. And other times, there was stuff that I edited together and people laughed at. And I was like, I didn't think that was funny. Or maybe I was just so jaded. I at first thought it was funny and put it in there. And then once I've seen it so many times, I forgot that was the intention. So that was really cool to see it with an audience of people who appreciated Chucky films. That was nice.
I mean, I kind of gagged when John Waters came on screen. I go, oh my God, you spoke to John. I mean, I just think that's iconic. Let alone also, again, I love the Chucky franchise. And it's just been so great because you also got to speak with, Don Mancini. And I think, just seeing that how he's been involved as well, just all through the process. And it's just also, it's so queer and it's so awesome and it's so horror. And I just think it was amazing that you put this project together, because I think it also gives more kind of this, I don't know, I would say then I almost felt like, well, maybe I could be a third family member, because it really just felt, I could tell you put a lot of love into this project.
Oh, yay. Good. Because blood, sweat, and tears went into the editing software.
How well, I'm just curious, and how long did the editing process then take, since this was kind of I guess trial and error?
A year and a half.
Oh wow.
Because also that's not my job, So it's also editing around, doing other things and like that type of thing. So it's just like editing where I could, when I could. And then I did take like a few months towards the end off of work and really honed in on editing, but it was intense.
That's great. And it blows my mind that you were also in the process of finishing school as well, because I remember, you know, 'cause I joke that I'm old, but I remember, you know, working full time or just putting so much into something while still trying to finish school. That's a lot to juggle. So I think that's kudos. And I'm still blown away that you spoke with John Waters, though. It
Oh my
did.
gosh. In his house too. That's his house.
I
Yeah.
would have been one of those people in the theaters hooting and hollering at that.
Yeah, I on the way, we drove, my cinematographer and I, we went to New York to interview Tony Timpone, and then we rented a car and drove down to Baltimore, and I was definitely just blasting the soundtrack from Hairspray as we were entering because it just seemed appropriate.
Well, the last question I would ask, because I also found this fascinating, is originally you were going to be a combat nurse, but Real Blood, you're not a fan of.
No, well, yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. My roommate in college, she like sliced her hand once, open it, like pitting an avocado.
Oh,
And so I'm not freaked out by blood. I'm really not, because on the way to the hospital, like as she's walking in and her hands, like she needed several stitches, is like gushing blood. I was like under it, like cupping her blood, because I was like worried about it getting on the floor of an emergency room. And the nurse like came in and was like, "What are you doing? That's like, don't do that. That's really bad." Or like if somebody cuts, like gets a cut or a gnarly bruise, I'm like taking pictures as reference for like SFX makeup ideas. So it really doesn't like disgust me. It's just that's why, because I originally wanted to be a nurse, and then I volunteered at my local hospital, and just like a 9 to 5 with it kind of being repetitious was not my cup of tea as somebody who has ADHD. And then I was like, combat nursing would be more interesting and I could still help people and stuff. And my mom immediately said no. And they suggested trying a filmmaking class, and that's where I fell in love with filmmaking.
Well, I love that. As somebody who I went down the nursing route as well, I found that to be fascinating. It was not for me. It doesn't bother me, but I was just like, I like the idea of helping people, but this like my twin and I, we're also ADHD, and we're just like, no, we can't sit. We've got to do something else. Like I got to be moving. I got to be, you know,
it can't
focused
be
on something
every day. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's kind of sad. So
well, I want to say thank you for taking the time to speak with me. I really do enjoy the project. Can't wait to actually watch it again on Screambox. But thank you so much. This is really, it means the world to me, because I, again, love Chucky as well.
oh, thank you. Thank you for watching it and the interview. Also, I love your art crispies in the background. That's awesome.
You have been listening to the Horror Hour. See you next time.